everybody here watching us replay or live. I am with the amazing Jo Gifford, and she's a founder of the Killer Content Academy. And of course, she's a content queen. What else? Say hello, Jo, and give us a little bit of intro to yourself.
Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for having me on, Nora. What a lovely welcome. So my name is Jo Gifford, and I am all about killer content creation and also bringing some creative thinking to your business. That is my jam with all of this stuff. So my background is, my first job was a graphic designer. So I come from a graphic design background. And then I've worked as a portfolio career, as a copywriter, a lecturer, a blogger. And I bring all of that stuff now to my approach with content creation for small businesses and entrepreneurs. So I love to really dig into all of this stuff around content.
Yeah, and content, I think, all right, so we're going to talk about content today, and there's so many different aspects of content. And what I really wanted to touch upon, and I'll just let you know now, is okay, how do you deal with content overwhelm? How do you create content intentionally? How do you create content that has the potential to get shared, aka, some of us know it as going viral, and then some of the content mistakes that you see. So that's kind of the questions that I want to be asking you. If anybody who's watching this live or in the replay, pop your questions into the comment below, and Jo and me will both get back to you. So, don't be afraid to ask. I know all of us have content issues from time to time, including Jo too, right?
Oh, totally. We all have things which come up, and I'm absolutely here to help with any of those queries. So feel free to hit us up with questions as they come. I'll just take a moment to share that to my page. So yeah, let's dig into it, Nora.
All right, so the first thing I kind of want to talk about is how to deal with content overwhelm, because we are all online, we all have smartphones, we've all got computers and laptops now, and it's so easy to produce content, but it also means it's so easy to get overwhelmed, especially with the amount of social media platforms that are out there today, and thinking that we have to be on all of them producing different content for all of these different platforms. So how do you deal with it?
Oh my gosh, right. This is something that my clients and my audience always come to me with. And so I know this one really, really well. So I'm going to answer it from a couple of angles. First of all, overwhelm as a content producer. So as a business owner, so someone who's creating it, and also as a content consumer, because we have control over how much we're taking in. That's the other thing. So we can be intentional about stepping away from the noise sometimes. And actually, whilst we need to know what's going on in our industry, in our niche, in our sector, to know what's happening trend-wise, you can be super specific with, watching some lists on Twitter, or you can automate some research to come directly to your inbox or to your Evernote. You don't need to be in it all the time, because actually that fries your brain, which stops you from being someone who's going to be able to produce some quality stuff, right? So one thing that I do, when it comes to stopping that overwhelm, is I actually install something called the newsfeed eradicator onto my Chrome, so that I don't see all of the things, right? I've taken Facebook off of my phone, so I only have the Messenger app and the groups. So I'm active with my clients, I'm active with the groups that I want to be in. And so if I choose to go in and to actively look at something on Facebook or on whatever social media platform, I've given myself a pocket of time to be in there and then out. So that's one thing I would say. You can help yourself with overwhelm by not constantly being in the noise. So you can choose to step away from that. And what that does is that gives you space, right? That gives you space to be able to let your own ideas, sort of rise to the surface, for you to be able to become the thought leader that you want to be, because you're not fragmenting your brain with all of this stuff. So you can step in and out, and then, sort of take what you've seen, have some space to consider it, and then to formulate your own content in a way that is informed, but is also original, because you're not then, forced to kind of try and fit in with what you're seeing all the time. So it allows you to have a different perspective. So from the perspective of someone who's creating content as a business owner, and you're like, oh man, do I need to be on Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook and my blog? And there's a few things that I would say to that. First of all, knowing your messaging really, really well is key, right? And that means knowing exactly who you are and what you bring to the party. usually gin if it's me. But but I mean, and you know, I walk through this process of being super clear on your experience, your expertise, your approach, and your personality. And I just kind of walk people through like a little brainstorm exercise, because when you mix up all of those things, you begin to see that you have a unique angle, right? And that's what we sort of panic about in this overwhelm noise. You kind of think, oh man, but everyone else is out there saying the same thing. No, you know, they might be in the same industry as you, but you have a different angle, because it might be that all the jobs you've done have brought you to this point and you have a unique you know, sort of insight. It might be that you are you know, you have a really strong kind of habit in one particular thing and you bring that to what you do. So maybe you're, I don't know, like a really keen gardener, right? And you're obsessed with plants and all of your language, you know, relates to that. Or maybe you're a chocoholic, right? And all of your content is kind of based around that because, you know, that's funny. Or maybe you've got a brilliant, you know, sense of humor, or, you know, you love a stadium rock, and I you know, quite often bring that out in my content, my kind of random music taste. So what you bring to things puts your stamp on it, right? So once you are super clear on what it is you're doing and also your perspective on it, for a start, you become much more confident and you're like, I got this. I know my stuff. I know my angle on this. I can do this. And then you can choose how and when you want to share, because you know, there's blueprints out there for everything, isn't there? There's like the 5-step formula to having this, that, the other. And some of that stuff works. And I do have some frameworks that I teach, which will help, you know, lessen the overwhelm. I'm going to come to that in a minute when I will let you talk, I promise, Nora. But, you know, once you are really confident in your angle on things, in your take on things, in your perspective, then you can say, right, it becomes so much easier to brainstorm a list of things that your clients actually want. And that's the next part, right? Your clients are already out there asking questions that you know how to answer. And there's a few tools which are so helpful with that. And I'm going to mention one here, which is answerthepublic.com. So if you are freaked out by, you know, keywords and not sure how to research SEO keywords and that sort of thing, if you go to answerthepublic.com, put in the search term for your industry or niche. It's a great one, isn't it? I'm sure you know this one as well. It's so good. And the old guy on the front page, the little animated old guy, is just so cool. So definitely check him out. And my clients love this because it gives you data of all the questions that are being asked around your subject area. And you can download that data as beautiful mind maps and stuff. But it essentially gives you all the questions that are being asked. And you can use your unique angle to answer them. So we've talked about stepping away from the noise, finding some space, and then connecting again with who you are and what your message is, and then choosing to answer things that your clients really want to know. And I think there's also some power in designing your own workflow. In fact, I know there's power in that, because we don't need to blog 5 times a week, right? We're not lifestyle bloggers as such. We are, you know, if you're coming at this from a business angle, you are creating content to add value to your audience, to get new clients, to get new leads, and to, you know, sort of build your list, to build your audience, to show them your expertise. So you can do a lot more with less. I'm going to let you speak a little bit.
No, I think it's everything you've said, I think, is so key. Well, first of all, I just want to re-mention that she mentioned Newsfeed Eradicator, and that's a Chrome extension. I'm not sure if it's a Safari extension. It's a Chrome extension, and it gets rid of your newsfeed, and it selectively allows you to look at Facebook without all the distractions, because it happens to all of us, right? You get onto Facebook and you're like, oh, look, some notification, somebody's messaged me, and then you go down that rabbit hole and then you forget what you did. And I do it all the time. So be very intentional when you do go onto social media, because the potential for overwhelm is so great. And we are beings that like to know things, and we are curious. And so, yes, you know, we like to go down the little rabbit holes, but when you're working in your workflow, you know, a great app is Newsfeed Eradicator. And the other thing that you mentioned is, and I was going to ask you this question, is how, you know, if you have a smaller business or you're just starting out, you might not know the questions people are answering. And then the tool that you mentioned, Answer the Public, is perfect for you then, because it's questions people have already been answering, and so you can type in your topic, mothers with sleepless children as example, and then all the questions will come up that people have been asking around that topic. I haven't actually used that yet, but it's the third time in a row that somebody has mentioned that tool to me, so it's about time that I started using it. However, I wanted to ask you, is it free or is it a paid tool?
No, it's free. It's totally free. You just, jump on the browser and you ask away. The other things that are really useful for finding out, what your clients want to know are, you can do like a short Facebook Live and kind of use that like as a focus group discussion. So get people on, have a chat about, what it is you're doing. That's like a live interaction focus group, which is really helpful as well. Other resources are Reddit and Quora, which is so good for jumping into those threads and seeing what people are asking. The interwebs has it all out there. And another one that I love to go on as well is the comment section of books on Amazon. So if you have, say your product is around, hit me up with something here, Nora, random products.
Laptop bags.
Awesome. Okay, so you're designing a laptop bag, right? Okay, that's a tricky example for me to do.
Right, no, we'll do no. So what sort of product do you want? Like in what field? In what
okay,
industry?
so we've got okay, I'm going to go with a nutrition coach, all right?
Cool.
So say we've got we're a raw nutrition business, okay, and we want to know what our clients are already asking.
Yeah.
I would go onto Amazon. I would look for some books around raw nutrition, and I would scroll on down to the comments and the reviews and see what people have said about that book, because what you find is that people will tell you what they were looking for when they came to that book. So they might say, I thought that raw food was all about weight loss, but actually I found it's blah, blah, blah. So what they came there looking for, and you'll also hear what they didn't find in that book. So their needs. So what I love to do is to build up a swipe file from Answer the Public, from Facebook groups as well. There's people asking stuff in all these groups, from Reddit, from Quora. But again, if that feels overwhelming, just choose one. Just choose one for now and just have a little look, come back and brainstorm some content ideas. And the other thing about overwhelm that's a lifesaver for people is that, say we've chosen one of these amazing topics. So let's stay on the example of our raw food health coach, right? And we know that people come to raw food because they want to heal some chronic illnesses, for example, right? So maybe one of my one of my talking points would be, how to heal your body with raw food or something like that. That talking point, you can repurpose that so many times. So, maybe we create a really, really killer blog post, right? And we use this topic. So we know the angle that we bring to it now, because I've gone through, reconnecting with who I am and my message and my humor and my expertise and all that stuff. I've got my language. I've got the questions that my clients are already asking. So already I'm kind of designing my own market there, because, people will either be attracted or repelled to the way that I give that content. Okay. And then you can stand on the shoulders of others by linking to what other people are talking about in that field. So you're adding to the conversation. You don't need to create everything from scratch. You can bring in links, add your sort of comments about it. You can crowdsource what people are asking on social media, add your input, so you can build something that has context, because actually we're not here to be the only guru in insert here industry. We're saying, hey, here's my take on it. Here's what they've been saying. This is what I say about that. And you can build a fantastic post. And when you do something like that, you can then reach out to everyone else who you've mentioned and say, hey, I just did this post on, healing yourself through raw food, for example. And I included your book or your link in here. More often than not, they will retweet, they will reshare, they will mention you, which helps us to get that reshareability, that, heading towards going viral. So, and then once we've created something that has value, that has context, that is shared, we can then use that as a basis for other content. So, once you've, prepared something and you've, created this post that has value, you can rework it as a webinar, as an opt-in, as a series of, beautiful visual, social media images with some quotes on, you can make that really work for you, and you don't need to keep on reinventing the wheel. You've got some stuff which your clients want to know, and you can really make it work hard for you.
So you're big on repurposing your content that you know is working.
Massive on repurposing your content. There's also a really helpful tool, which is repurpose.io, which I'm huge on at the moment. So I repurpose in a few ways. Repurpose.io is a new app that's currently in beta, but it's working fantastically, and it's free. I think you get free for like a few channels, but it's really inexpensive. So at the moment, I have my podcast links go into it. So my podcast RSS feed gets automatically repurposed on YouTube with a graphic, with all the titles, with the tags. So as soon as I hit play on my podcast, it goes out to all my social media channels and goes to YouTube, right? So the other thing is, every time I do a Facebook Live from my profile or my page, it also goes to YouTube and gets shared to my profile. So you can set up things which are automatic for you. That's a massive one as well for dealing with overwhelm, is some super smart workflow stuff. So there are so many tools to help you. I'm going to mention two of them. IfthisthenThat.com, IFTTT.com, which I'm sure lots of your peeps will know, and Zapier.com. So you can link up little recipes so that every time you share something to your Facebook page, it can go to your Twitter or to your LinkedIn or to your buffer. And this can feel overwhelming if you start to mention it, but if you start to play, you will see the scope for doing something once and having it work for you. So some things can be automated, some things you need to sort of go in and, sort of pull out quotes from your blog post and do them as images. But, depending on where you are in the game, you can have those outsourced. You can, that's the kind of thing you can start to pass off when you're ready to your team or to an assistant or, that kind of thing. So working smarter is a massive, massive part of not having the brain fried.
Yeah, and content overwhelm in general. Just want to say, if you've just tuned in, this is Nora Wendel with the Photo Forest and Jo Gifford, content queen and founder of the Killer Content Academy. And we are discussing all things content, how to deal with content overwhelm, how to create content intentionally and make it have the potential to get shared. And then how, what's the last thing we're going to talk about? Yes. Content mistakes that Jo's seeing. So if you've got any comments, if you want to ask any questions, pop them below and we will answer them now or later after this live. So we just finished talking a little bit about dealing with content overwhelm. You gave some amazing tools, so thank you for that. I love your mug. And the next thing I wanted to talk about is how to create content intentionally. So maybe you already touched upon this. I don't know if you have any other things that you want to add to that as well.
Of course. So we talked about, setting the intention with your messaging, getting clear on what your customers are asking. So to recap that, and then being clear about who you are and what you bring to it, because that's the refreshing thing with overwhelm. We each have a completely different personality, angle, experience, and everything. And that can really help us if we're feeling a little bit fried. Another thing which I teach is something called a content capsule. So where we feel kind of like there's a never-ending sea of things to, to create, I like to build a framework that is containable and scalable. So, it works by having a few blog posts at the core. So I tend to work with 6 blog posts at the basis of it, and we'll have gone through that process of what's the other clients asking, what should I talk about. Have the 6 blog posts at the core, use 2 of those to upcycle as opt-ins, use 2 of those posts to upcycle as webinars, and use 2 of them as pre-recorded videos. And even if you just do those over 2 or 3 months, you'll have a library of stuff that will soon build up. You can scale that up to the point where you can turn all of them into lives. You can turn all of them into videos if you want. You can turn all of them into guest posts. You can repurpose each of them as visual social media. But if you just give yourself a container that says, right, this is what I'm focusing on for the next few weeks and months. And the other thing is to make sure that you're working in a way that is intuitive to you, that feels good to you. And what I mean by that is not everyone loves to sit down and write. Some people prefer to talk it out. and or to jump straight onto video. There's a few crazy people that find it a lot easier just to jump straight on a live or go straight to YouTube and to let it all out that way, in which case you can have things sort of transcribed and work in a different way. So it's great to be able to offer your audience a range of ways to, sort of to consume, because they, some people might want to consume a podcast, or some people might want to consume a video or a post, but you can be smart about how you create that. So if you, for example, love to kind of talk things out on the fly, so I love to sort of transcribe blog posts sometimes while I'm driving, or whilst I'm doing my makeup, or sort of cooking dinner for the kids. It will often like arrive in my head, and I'm right, I'm going to get that down. And so I jump on the smartphone and I record it either straight to my voice memos, and I send that then to rev.com to get transcribed, or straight into something called Dropbox, which links those files to my Dropbox. And I can store them for later on. I'm a bit of an app fiend. So, maybe dictating stuff will help you. Maybe spending 5 minutes on a Facebook Live is your jam, in which case you've probably created something that can be reworded, repurposed in far less time than sitting down to write a blog post. If you'd rather, sort of dig your own eyes out than do that, there's ways to make it work easier for you. So, start to look into how you work best. You don't have to do what everyone else is doing. Yes, there's some, some rules of thumb, some things which you need to pay, attention to, all that sort of stuff. But you can kind of create this in a way that feels good to you, because that's where you'll find it easier to, to sort of do. So find how you work best.
Definitely. And it might be you got to try things, right? You might have to try writing a few blog posts, and you might have to try doing a few voice transcriptions. And the first 2-3 times you might be so frustrated and struggle. I suggest at least do things 5 times, because then you can kind of know, because I've just started transcribing, doing voice recordings of blog posts. And actually when I wake up in the morning is when I have my ideas for blog posts, funnily enough. And I have my phone, and I just have my phone on record, and I record it. And you know what? It was so awkward the first 5 times I did it. I was just like, no way, I can't do this. And there were like awkward pauses and silences, because I was like, what do I say? And I felt pressurized. But then by the 5th time, I was like, hey, this is easy. I don't have to sit and write it, and I can send it to someone else, to do. Or then if I do want to transcribe it, it's there, right? So try things out, try things out. See if you're a Facebook Live person. Don't do it once, do it a few more times. Things take practice. You're not going to be amazing the first time, and no one is, all right?
Oh God. And here's the thing, guys, the more that you do create, I like to have a little sort of content creation every single day, even if it's like a small part of working on a bigger blog post or just getting something out via social media. The more you flex that muscle, the easier it becomes. And also your audience want to come with you on the journey. They don't, if you rock up all fully polished, you've been hiding away for years, working on your perfect videos, on your perfect stuff, they'll be like, well, where did you come from? But if you kind of build up to it and you're like, everything's a bit imperfect, like I've just, in fact, just this morning I sent out to my whole list, bless them, like all sorts of broken links to my webinars and stuff like that. And then it's me, right? And they're like, Jo, link's broken. Up. Sorry, guys, here it is. We are imperfect. We live in, we're human. And just start is what I'm trying to tell you. Just get out there, start to do it. And the more you find your voice, the easier it becomes. Years ago, I'd have been terrified to sort of jump on a Facebook Live first thing in the morning and talk to potentially hundreds of thousands of people. Now I'm like, cool, okay, we got this. I can talk about it. It's not, it's no problem. But it takes practice, it just takes for you to sort of, just give it a go and work out. And you don't, if you're a real introvert and the idea of lives makes you want to hide and shake in the corner, no worries. Do some pre-recorded stuff. You can edit that as many times as you want. You don't need to be on stage in a way that feels uncomfortable for you. And that is the beauty of content creation as well. So, you have your stuff out there working for you 24/7. You have your shop front open, people can find you, can, sort of join your list and join your groups and buy your stuff while you're asleep. Like that is what we're doing here. And that's the fun part of it. So, so you can wake up and more people have found you or have booked your products or have signed up because you've already got yourself out there in a way that feels really good. So if you are a real introvert and you kind of think, I can't do a live or record stuff. No worries. Do it in a way that feels really good for you. But also when it feels good to try, just try.
You know, I think I just want to emphasize what you just said, because I think it's such a beautiful point, is that your content is working for you 24/7, right? You create it and it gets put out there and it stays out there, unless, let's say, Snapchat or Instagram stories, it disappears. But in general, a Facebook Live, it stays there unless you delete it. A blog post, it stays there. And you know what? It's happened to me before. A blog post I wrote a year ago, somebody contacted me because they liked what I wrote and she became a client of me. And I had completely forgotten. I had to go and Google, you know, sales pages by Nora Wendel to remember what the hell that blog post was, right? And so it's like it works, all right? It's showing people who you are, what you stand for, and how you can help them. That is the idea of content, right?
It really is. Yeah. And you know, it happened to me just last week. I had someone book straight away from me because of something they found a couple of years ago, and they went straight to my site, which is now redirected to my newer site. But it's all working. It's like, right, that's what I need. And it might be that you recorded a podcast with someone years ago and it's still out there. It's like you're building up this whole library of stuff. And what I love is that I can now show people that journey of like, here's my first video, guys, and I'm really awkward and I'm really like, oh, it's all YouTube and I've got my little sort of phone voice on and I'm like, you know, whereas now I'll just be like, morning, Nora, let's do it, let's talk. And that's a kind of evolution. And my clients see that and the audience see that, and it makes them feel like, well, I can grow as well. You know, we don't all start off like Marie Forleo with amazing blow-dried hair in a studio set. You know, when that she didn't start like that, lover. She, you know, she started off with her flat and a video camera. Like, you have to go incremental and to build up in a way that feels really, really good, you know, to you. And it, you know, it is all out there working for you. So it's worth doing some really good stuff. And it's, sorry, I'm getting right of sunshine in my face. It's worth creating 1 or 2 awesome pieces a month than slaving over your laptop every day, you know, trying to give birth to all these ideas. Like, it's, you know, more is less is more in a situation. You know, get some really great stuff out there, because that's one of the common mistakes that we do see. We're talking about, you know, mistakes, Nora, is seeing the need to kind of churn out loads of stuff. No, like, there's a lot of stuff out there anyway. We don't need to add to the noise in a way that's not adding any value. Think about whatever you're putting out there. Is it giving a new perspective? Is it adding anything to the conversation? Like, you don't need to just, you know, be contributing in a way that has no purpose, that has no intention. And it's much more powerful to create something that, you know, is an amazing blog post that everyone's like, I need to really share this, and or that's a really fantastic video. It's a, you know, that's a really helpful tool. Just add something into the conversation that has value. Don't just keep on sort of churning. And the other massive mistake I see, but I understand where this comes from, is people are like not sure how to show up in their content. So they try on personas and language of other people. And it happens a lot, especially when we start out. You know, you're kind of like, well, I'm not really quite sure how to, you know, position myself, and, you know, so, you know, well, that person's doing it in a cool way, perhaps I can kind of grab some of that language. And what you see is everyone using the same language, the same buzzwords, the same things, and we all see it. And it usually means that that person isn't really confident using their own tone of voice, using their own set of language, their own dictionary, really, because, you know, and again, that comes from experience, and it comes from reconnecting with your personality, your approach, your experience. And when you realize that everything that you bring to the table right now is unique, no one else has your set of education experience, of your first jobs that were terrible, of, you know, all the things you did like as a child, all that stuff is you. And, you know, when you reconnect with that, it's a lot easier to bring some originality, which also really helps you stand out.
Yeah, originality. I think, yeah, tone of voice and just writing as you or speaking as you is really key. And you don't need to be anybody else, because, you know, I don't need to pretend to be Marie Forleo, because, you know, my followers don't want me to pretend to be Marie Forleo. They want me to be me. So just, you know, realizing that, just be you, authenticity, be raw, be real. And it's okay if you make mistakes. It happens to everybody. You know, Jo sent out an email with broken links, you know, so what? You send out another email saying, sorry, guys, forgot about it. Here are the right links. You know, people are much more forgiving than you think that they are. You think you have to be perfect. You know what? I'd rather see you making mistakes and seeing you perfect all the time.
Do you know what?
I actually enjoy. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
The right people are really forgiving. So my tribe are the ones who are like, oh, Jo's done it again. She sent out a thing with all the, and they're like, hey, dude, that's wrong. I'm like, sorry, guys, here it is. And I made a joke this morning about having some sort of tech intervention because I've reached 40 now and that's it. I'm over the hill and I keep doing all these wrong things. It made them all laugh and they still signed up. It's fine. I'll still be teaching that webinar later on. It doesn't stop anyone from coming. Yes, it's not ideal, but we all have things that happen. Perhaps you're on a Facebook Live and the connection drops, like, oh my God, it's okay. You just restart it. Or, you know, perhaps you sent out something with a spelling mistake. Okay, the grammar police aren't going to like it, but you're out there and you did it, and that's totally fine. And, you know, there are people that are really scared about doing something if it's not perfect. But what is really good to remember is that your people who really resonate with you, who love how you work, who love how you talk, who love all the stuff you bring, when you start to work with a client, that's what they're going to see. They're going to see the tech fails occasionally, and they're going to see the humor, and they're going to see all that stuff. So better to be that online, because then when you jump on a client call, you know, quite often now, you know, when I sign somebody new, what's really lovely is we'll jump straight on the call and like, hey, Jo, how's the kids? How's this, that, and the other? And it's like they know me because I'm sharing all of that stuff in a way that is really normal, really human. Whereas if I was all like, everything's perfect, you know, my life is all amazing, I'm never going to sort of tell you anything otherwise, I'll be a very different person, and they'd have a real shock when they go to speak with me. They're like, oh, that's not the image I had. So your brand is congruent with you because of all those things. You know, you show up as a personal brand for all of its flaws, for all of its amazingness. And the you know, it can sometimes feel like, well, does being authentic and real and raw mean I need to like share all my deepest, darkest secrets? No, you can create some boundaries around what you do and don't want to share. That's a big thing as well, is, you know, if talking about your kids or your family is a thing that is really not something you want to bring into your business, amazing. That's fine. That's your privilege. You get to choose how much you ring fence around it, how much you share, how much you don't. And you know, once you start finding a space that's really comfortable for you, that you're happy sharing up to a certain point, but you're finding your voice, it just becomes so much easier. It just becomes a conversation, which is all content really is.
A conversation between you and your audience and the people out there.
Totally.
That's a beautiful summary. Content is conversation. If you've just tuned in, say hello, pop your name into the comments, say where you're coming from, and if you have any questions, are you stuck on content, you know, put it into the comments below and we'll answer them here or afterwards as well. I've got Janet Lee, and she's saying, loving the golden nuggets, ladies, start where we're at. Heart.
Yes.
Thanks, yes, Janet. Exactly, Janet. Yes, I know she's tuning in, I think, from Hawaii.
And all you guys with your exotic locations. I'm hardly envy right now.
So this is Jo Gifford. You're listening to Jo Gifford talk all about content. She's founder of the Killer Content Academy and the Queen of Content. And I am Nora Wendel, founder of the Photo Forest, a place where you can get amazing stock photos in a membership site. And it's for heart-centered entrepreneurs. So if you haven't heard about it, come check us out. It's thephotoforest.com. And we're talking about content. So Jo, the next question I wanted to write, and the juicy question, I think, is how do you create content that has the potential to be shared, right? So we're all here, we're intentional, we know what we want to create, we have understood the questions our audience is asking, so we know we've got a kind of a little bit of a content plan in place. So, you know, everybody wants content that, you know, people see and, you know, spreads wider and wider. And so do you have a formula for that? Do you have some tips that you can give us?
I do have some tips, absolutely. So one tip is building a really powerful post, like I said earlier, which stands on the shoulders of others. So link to what other people are saying in your industry. Create something really, really powerful, which references other key influencers and key players in your niche, right? Because then you're giving context, but also importantly, you can reach out to those people after you have, you know, done that post. And they will quite often share for you. They will quite often retweet and share, right? So if you're creating something which adds value, which links to others, you know, that they will quite often share. Another thing to do, if you want something to be shared, is to write something quite controversial, is to deal with something that's going to have a real like spark or debate to it. that is what people want to see as well. You know, it's like, oh, that's quite an edgy post, that's an edgy comment, that's something I'm not sure whether I disagree with or not. That gets people talking. So something which gets people talking will be something that's shared, something that gets people laughing. Think about all the memes, all the reaction gifs, all the stuff like that. If you have a point of view where you can add some humor, and again, this comes to using creative thinking and using some, you know, originality with it, you can create something that's funny, that people want to share, or that, you know, say, for example, you know, this is what I kind of love to kind of tell my peeps as well. If there's something going on in your industry right now that you're really pissed off with, that you have a real opinion about, brilliant place to start, right? Because that's going to spark some debate, and it also sort of positions you as someone that has an opinion. We want to be, you know, if you have an opinion on something, share it. It's okay if that opinion changes later on. You can come back and say, hey, you know, last year I said this and actually I was wrong because of XYZ. We're just adding to the conversation. And so if there's a particular trend in your niche, if there's a particular like theme or something that's happening that you're like, this is crazy, why are people doing this? That's a great place to start as well, because you know people want to see your take on things and will no doubt be sharing that because it's a little bit edgy. So stand on the shoulders of others, and you know, and get shared by the people that you're including. Have an opinion. Sometimes it's a little bit on the edge of being controversial, and also make things funny, make things look good, right? We are in a visual content you know, time right now. You know, visuals get shared, I think 80% more, you know, than text does. If something looks good, if something, you know, if your page looks amazing, if your page, you know, or your blog post allows people to share as well. So, you know, so think about bringing in things like a click to tweet option. You know, make sure your images can be pinned. Invite people to share is another really key thing. Just say to them, hey, if you love this, you know, tag someone below, you know, share this. Make that conversation something which is invited.
Yeah, no, I think people get afraid to ask people to share, but you know what? Just don't be afraid, you know, think like, hey, you know, did you get value out of this? Well, I bet you know one other person who could get value out of this too. If you found it valuable, that somebody else will find it valuable too. So share this with them, tag them below, you know, post it on your Facebook page. There's no harm in asking people to share your content.
Absolutely. And you know, if you think about the podcast that you listen to, you know, or the YouTube videos, more often than not, you know, people say, hey, if you like this, then subscribe and share with the friend. That's all it is. It takes 2 seconds. And if you shared something, you know, like we're doing right now, that has some value, where someone might be like, that's really helped me this morning, awesome, then guys, share it. You know, let us know in, you know, sort of below that you loved it, and then share or tag someone. It's that simple. But also, if you're doing like a blog post or something, you can put it down below, like, hey, you know, sign up for my, you know, for my updates, but also let me know what you thought about this. You know, perhaps you have a Facebook group that, you know, that they can carry that conversation on into. Like, you can design how the conversation works around your stuff, and you know, having the Facebook group, you know, might not be your thing, or you know, whatever it is, you can invite people to have a conversation with you on Instagram, on Twitter, on whichever platform you are loving, and you can be like, hey, that's where, you know, that's where I am, that's where I'm hanging out, that's where you can get more of me, and they're going to want to contribute to that and share.
And you know, just because we were talking about Marie Forleo earlier, she is really good at continuing the conversation after her content. So if you want to have a case study, go and look at Marie Forleo for her new podcast she just launched recently, and all her blog posts and her little YouTube series and the videos that she does. She's really intentional in saying the conversation continues on the website, right? And if you look, okay, yes, she is really popular, but people are sharing as mad. They're giving their opinions. They're saying this and saying, I don't agree, and that. And she's just really clear that the conversation and where you can find more of her is in the comment section on her website. So you go and look at that, how she does that, study that. If you know someone who's quite influential online, study how are they creating their content, and how do they continue the conversation afterwards.
And then, you know, once you've studied them and once you've got from it what you love about it, think about what you can do that suits you, or that, you know, or that's different, right? You know, so think about, okay, well, they've been intentional and said, hey, come to my blog comments, or they've been intentional and said, hey, come to my Facebook page or my group. what do you love? You know, where do you want to see the conversation? Where do you want to carry on and add some value? You know, perhaps you're doing like a weekly live and you'll say, hey, you know, jump on my next week's live and carry on with me. Or, you know, perhaps you want to have a live discussion after every blog post at a certain time. You know, whatever you want to do, you know, look at what's working, look at what's coming up, you know, be aware of tech changes, of tech trends and stuff like that. So, you know, look at where you can take things next, but then also take it back to how you love to work and what you can try that feels really good to you.
Definitely. Obviously, it always has to work in your workflow, because otherwise you're never going to do it. If it doesn't happen and easily happen for you, you're not going to do it. And just accept that early on, all right? Accept that early on.
That's a really good point. Like, yeah, if you feel like, you know, if you're sitting down to create something and you're like, oh man, this feels really, really hard. And it's, you know, there's a point at which it goes beyond procrastination and that you actually realize it's not a good flow for you. So, you know, sit with it and be like, well, maybe I can try something else to make it easier for myself. You know, content creation should and can feel like it's really easy. And there's a couple of things you can do if it's not feeling really easy. You know, get some support around it. You can outsource as well. You know, there's some brilliant ghostwriters, there's some brilliant bloggers, there's some brilliant, you know, when you're at that stage in your game, you can start to hand some bits off. But, you know, look at a way that's works really well for you, that maybe on a Monday morning you're in your car or you're on your bike and you're gonna, you know, sort of dictate a great blog post for the week and you are done. And, you know, you can go in and sort of tinker with it and add the links and add the images later on. But if you know that that's your habit, because you need to create some space in a habit to get this done as well, it needs to be part of your plan every week, you know, even if you're just dealing with a small amount every week, just to slice it down, you need to make space, because this is your business, and this is getting people to you. This is getting the right customers through the door. It's that important.
It's fun. I love it. I love it all. So just recap the 3 points that you said. So how do you create content that has a potential to get shared? Just recap quickly, because you had some 3 great tips there.
I did, didn't I? What did I say? So yeah, I said, you know, build a post which stands on the shoulders of others. So you're linking to other influencers in your field, and you're adding your piece to it. And then you reach out to them, say, hey, I've just written this post, and they will quite often share. Have something, you know, talk about something that you're really fired up about, that's quite controversial, that, you know, will get spoken about, that will get shared, that will perhaps, you know, I was going to say put the cat among the pigeons. That sounded like a really retro phrase. Put the cat among the pigeons. Or you can, you know, make something look amazing, you know, have some great graphics on there, you know, make it really easy to share, ask for people to share. So you are, you know, making it something that everybody wants to go, hey, look at this.
Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. It's amazing. You got to share it. You know, look at this. Look at this. All right. Let's just talk about some content creation mistakes that you see people making and that make you just cringe. You're like, no, they've done it again.
Oh, so one thing is just churning stuff out for no reason. So it's like feeling that pressure of like, I need to write about stuff and I'm not quite sure. And whilst on the one hand, I love that they're doing it. Like, yay for getting out there and doing stuff, but I want people to take the pressure off of just churning out for no reason, and just to think about how you can be strategic and intentional and do more with less. Other things, you know, we mentioned people trying on other people's personas, other people's language, so it's really not congruent with who you are and your brand. Okay, so get super clear from the outset with your voice, your message, how awesome you already are. And once you have that confidence, it becomes a lot easier. And then just kind of having a really robotic approach. You know, if we're, you know, heart-centered and sort of personal brands, you know, you can bring your personality, you know, to it. You know, you don't need to do kind of really clinical posts that don't have quirks and humor and humanity in them. So don't be afraid to kind of show up a little bit more in what you're doing. So, you know, we're adding value, but we're adding personality as well.
All right. So those are some of your mistakes. I just wanted to add in a quick question. So do you have anything to comment about what social media platforms people should be on? Because that kind of comes into the content creation as well, right? Different social media platforms have different types of content. So Twitter is really short content. Instagram is visual content. You know, Facebook is a mixture of everything. So, you know, do you want to say a few words about that?
You know, I think it depends where you are in your business game, right? If you're just starting out, choose one platform, get to know it really well, make it work for you, have it all set up so that you're building your audience, and then bring another one into the mix, right? So it might be that you just choose to focus on Instagram and your blog, and those are the two that you're working with, and then you bring in Facebook. I think there's a lot of pressure to be on everything all the time, and I think that you lose some focus. So choose how you want to show up. I'm on all of them, except Snapchat. Like, I'm not very active on there at the moment, but I usually post something to Instagram every day. Maybe it's one or two. I run my Facebook group and my Facebook page, and I'm in and out of Twitter. And I have a strong Pinterest following, but that's been a few years in the making. So, start to build up a following and a tribe in one, and then you can start to bring others into the mix. But I think it's nice to have a spread that you can manage, because you're not playing in one little pond. Then you're not, in a Facebook sort of bubble. I think it's important to make sure that you are finding new people in a different way and having different conversations. But it would also depend on the nature of your business. So if you're, very kind of, foodie or sort of fashion led and all that kind of stuff, Pinterest and Instagram will be much stronger for you because of the visual content. So it does depend on the industry as well. But in general, start small, make something work for you, add something else to the mix. Again, it's not about scattergun approach. We'd rather be strategic and intentional, and that actually builds up faster for you than just panicking.
Yeah, I think when you first start out in business, especially, you go like, oh my God, I've got to be on all of them. And then you open accounts with your name in all of them. And I think, yes, you can kind of take the name already, because I think you might think, okay, maybe in the future, so you can open an account, but then maybe just let it be dormant for a little bit until you can have a focus on one of them and build your community. And then you've already got that Instagram handle for when you're ready for that, right? Unless you, of course, understand totally that you want to automate that 100%, and you don't have to worry about it too much, then you can do that. However, I haven't seen many people being able to do that successfully, because they immediately get stressed about, oh my God, I have to be on Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and now Facebook stories as well, right? It doesn't work, because you're diluting yourself, you're diluting your message, and you're not creating content that's valuable and intentional enough, because you feel like you've got to be everywhere at all times. And I can guarantee you, those people that are everywhere at the same time, so some big name people here, they don't do it themselves. They've got one person handling maybe one account for them. So it's not just them. So don't think that you've got to do everything. Those people have separate people for most of their things, just repurposing. It's all about repurposing one blog post or one YouTube video, and then it gets dissected into all these other little bits of content for the social media channels.
It really is. And depending on if you're starting out, especially, or you're kind of building your business and you're wearing all the hats yourself, you will not have time to be doing all of it. So concentrate on something until you build your business to the stage where you can get some support and you can get some help to do that, and then you can branch out some more. But don't compare yourself to big influencers that have huge teams working for them doing all this stuff, and just take away that overwhelm, guys.
There's no reason for content overwhelm. Yes, there's loads of content, but be intentional with what you consume as well.
Totally.
You did also mention at the very beginning of this live, and if you've just joined us, hello, come say hi, pop your name in the comments where you're coming from. We're talking about content here with Jo Gifford and Nora Wendel from the Photo Forest, and I wanted to ask Jo again, in the beginning you talked about some tools for getting feeds of content of what you wanted to learn about. What tools do you kind of use to kind of curate content? So one thing I think we should also mention is that you don't always have to create every single piece of content yourself. You can also share other people's content. So
absolutely right. So there's a whole load of tools. So again, this is where my little friends, If This Then That and Zapier come in. Zapier. I always say it with a little so you can you can set up again some recipes so that you can follow certain Twitter accounts or certain Instagram accounts and actually curate all the research into your Evernote or your Google Drive or even your Trello automatically. So if you know that you've got some key people that you need to always see what they're doing, set those bad boys up so that it comes straight to your inbox, your Evernote, or your, you know, whatever works for you. And that's happening behind the scenes, right? So that you're not having to go, oh God, it's Tuesday, I haven't checked what so-and-so said. It's happening. Other things are Pocket is a great place to, you know, look at and, you know, favorite some great articles. And again, you can set that up with some automations that you can favorite something and it tweets or it saves, all that magical stuff. Feedly is a brilliant place to go to for some certain RSS feeds. You might want to set up sort of lists on Twitter or Facebook lists of people that you need to know, and just shut the rest of the noise out so that when you go in, you can be intentional. So whether it's automated or not, whatever works for you, make sure that you are seeing who you need to see and that you can build up, you know, those kind of, you know, resources which you can share. Another great one is buzzsumo.com, which is a paid tool, but you have like a daily free amount where you could see the top influential articles in your industry and niche, and you can see how many shares they've got. So you can be sharing that stuff as well. You can get content curation from Pinterest, from all over the place. So spend a little bit of time digging into what's being said, and you can share that, because when you're adding to the conversation by sharing other people's as well, again, you're giving context and you're showing yourself as someone who, you know, has really interesting stuff to share and to say, which is what we want to know, right?
Yeah, we want to hear from you. Don't be scared. We're eager to hear from you and your opinion on certain things and the way that you can help me and everybody else, right? That's the idea, starting the conversation with your content, no matter if it's written or audio or video or Facebook Live, it's all content. So I just wanted to end and touch upon visual content, right? So obviously the Photo Force is a stock photography membership platform for heart-centered businesses. And I went and I personally curated 20 stock photo sites, and the Photo Force is included in that, where you can find diverse stock photos. And this is actually a pet peeve of mine with the stock photo sites that you find, free and paid, is that there's not enough diversity in it. So I'm talking about, you know, size, racial, geographic diversity. So I've gone and corrected 20 stock photo sites where you can get beautiful, diverse images, and it's like real and raw. And you can find that on the blog post, and it's just thephotoforce.com/free stock photo website. So if you just Google that, it's there. And there is a dash between all the words. So it's free-stock-photo-websites. And I wanted to hear Jo's opinion, and I've sprung this question onto you, so apologies, about, you know, using, you know, stock photos and visual marketing in content. So, you know, what is your opinion on that?
Oh my gosh, it's so important. Like, you know, and also I was just going to comment on how your example of your blog post really neatly shows that, you know, you've linked to kind of, you know, sort of, you know, kind of other sites. So you're showing context, and you've also mentioned something that's, you know, that's quite controversial. So you've just ticked those boxes on something that's a really shareable post on that one you just mentioned. So that's a fantastic example. Visual content is so important. Using killer images is really, really key, because, you know, people connect with emotions, they connect with, you know, visual stuff. We are swamped by text, guys. So, you know, having some brilliant visuals is such a key part of your strategy. So, you know, whether you use them and you add on text and quotes and you build up some visual, you know, language using them, honestly get going with the visuals, guys. It's really, really important.
Yeah, can't emphasize it enough, right? That's why I started the Photo Force. Totally. It's we are visual beings, and we connect. You know, if you have an image, a photo, and an image in a blog post, and you've got text beside it, and go and try this out. Open the next blog post you see. You're first going to look at the image. You're not going to first read the text. You might read a little bit of the headline, and then your eyes will immediately go to the image, because, you know, our sight, when we were primates, our sight is the first thing that protected us, right? It's our strongest sense, and which is why we analyze images first for the stories and the emotions that they contain with them.
Absolutely.
All right,
and we
Jo.
Thank you so much. What amazing chats. That's an hour of content, and we've bombarded people with links and with stuff like that. But if anyone needs to know any more, just comment below, and I can always jump on and be part of the conversation. That's what it's all about here.
Yeah. So this was Jo Gifford, and you can go check her out. You can just Google Killer Content Academy and see what she has on offer there. Do you want to say anything about your Killer Content Academy?
The Killer Content Academy is a huge library of amazing resources. So you can go to killercontentacademy.com. You can also find me on jogifford.co, where you'll see all the other stuff that I have to offer on content and free training. So do come and say hi. It's been great to be here with you, Nora. Thank you so much this morning.
All right. Anyway, thank you, Jo, and thank you all for watching. As Jo said, questions, anything like that, pop them below. We are always here to answer them. And I want to see some amazing content for you. So go on, don't hold back. Just be intentional in what you want to share. Know the questions that your audience is asking, because that means you can be intentional in the content you create. Jo's mentioned some fantastic tools that you can watch this again and make some notes, because Jo, you have given some killer content tips. So thank you so much from that. This is from me, from the Photo Forest, and Nora. Much love to you. Bye.
Bye.